Thank you, Sean. Very good. As someone with a huge interest in the internet and all the latest developments that goes on, I've been always watching what's going on for about 13 years. I'm really looking forward to hearing our next speaker. On the subject of creating competitive advantage in today's digital world, we have Microsoft's new Director of Marketing and Operations, Richard Moore.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Let me just do an audio test because I like to walk around. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, very good. Well, let me just hopefully bring this back to life. I've been in strategy and technology jobs for about 20 years. It's a scary thinking back on that. And I think it's fair to say the last kind of 2 to 3 years have been some of the most profound changes that we've seen across the kind of landscape of technology, and really interesting how it's impacting business. That's what I want to talk about tonight, and talk a little bit about what it might mean for you and how you can react and what you can do about it. So there's 4 main, it's not mega trends, we like these kind of words, which are driving business. And I'm going to talk in quite a lot of detail about social and cloud later, but I want to touch on the first 2 before we get into that. Mobility. So mobility has exploded in the last 10 years, but really mostly in the last 4 to 5 years. We've gone from a world where it was actually a pretty simple phone here a while ago, so you can use it as a prop, kind of a pretty simple feature phone, through to smartphones. We've seen desktop PCs replaced by laptops, and of course there's been a huge tablet explosion. And what's happened is people therefore want to have all the information to their hands to make decisions at any time. So if you typically look at and this applies both to customers in the business sense as well as in the kind of consumer world, right? I'm talking about business to business and business to consumer. Very often people have done research on their mobile device, and they've looked around and tried to understand what's going on with different options before they make a purchase. No doubt you've seen Amazon has a scanner. I'm sure many of you have seen this. You scan the barcode when you're in the shop, and it actually tells you what Amazon's price is for that item when you're in the shop, which is pretty cheeky, right? That's what people are doing. And equally then you have there's a lot of competitive dynamics where the revenge of the bricks and mortar retailers is starting to kick in. I was in the US last week, and I won't name the store, but some of the really big department stores now have Wi-Fi. And if you're roaming, you're thinking, hey, that's great, I've got Wi-Fi, right? It's cheap, I can do this. And then you realize why they have it. They're actually tracking what you're doing when you're in the store. So when I'm in the jeans department and I'm looking at a pair of jeans for, as a present, and they're saying, okay, so where does he go then? Well, that's interesting. He looks on Hilfiger's site, or he looks on Amazon's site, he sees how much it is. Then where does he go? Which price comparison website does he go to? So there's interesting, it's not all about mobile and people. People are fighting back and finding really interesting ways to play, which I think is really fascinating. So the next time you're offered Wi-Fi, have a little think about what might be going on in the background, because you probably clicked the terms and conditions, which allows them to do that, even if you weren't aware. Then big data is my next point. Memory, as I'm sure many of you are aware, has become really cheap and is getting cheaper. And processing power is really cheap and getting cheaper. And you put that together, you can do some amazing things that you couldn't imagine doing before. A simple example, I'm a die-hard music fan. I actually have a lot of vinyl LPs and I have a lot of CDs. I've digitized all my CDs onto a streamer. I bought a 1 terabyte drive yesterday in PC World for €80 or something. And even though I have 1,500 CDs, I could fit that collection 10 times over onto that little device that cost me buttons. It's extraordinary, really extraordinary. And then you put that kind of processing power together with the web, and you get some really interesting things. Topshop. Is anybody here in clothing retail? Anybody? Okay. Clothing retail, the holy grail in clothing retail is to try and make sure you stock what's going to sell, and you don't stock what isn't going to sell, because you have to make it and it takes months to arrive. Now, people have done all kinds of clever stuff with supply chain management and different ways of configuring manufacturing to try and deal with this. But Topshop have just done something really revolutionary and quite different. Their fashion show for this week, I think, in London, they broadcast it on the web. And if you're a consumer and you're interested, you can go in and say, I like that. Actually, I'd like that if it was a different color. I'd like that if that was taller or shorter, whatever. They're getting real-time feedback from tens of thousands of people online, way before the stuff gets into the shops. So they know ahead of time what they can do. The other thing that I think is going to be a big explosion around big data is personal telemetry. Now, you can see I'm probably not somebody that's an avid gym user. There probably are a few of you here who are. Does anybody use Fitbit or any of those things? Anybody know what that is? Okay, one person, very good. So there's these kind of personal telemetry devices that are appearing that basically broadcast information about you that then syncs with your phone or with your computer or whatever. And that's only just getting started. Today it's blood pressure and heart rate. In the future, it could actually be actively looking for medical information, so on, and sending it back with your doctor. And that's all because memory's cheap and processing power is cheap. Now let me put this together and give you a little quiz, so I'll pause for a second and let you look at this photograph. Does anybody know what that photograph is, what you see there? The year is quite a big clue. I'm sorry? You're absolutely right. So we have a prize, I think. Well, it's the mouse. Yeah, well done. Yeah. Very good. What I want to draw your attention to is if you look at the picture, and you'll see, you see what's in the bottom right-hand corner? Right? Now, if we fast forward to 2013 and Pope Francis. So, I mean, you talk about big data mobility, that's it explained in front of you, that all those people are syncing those photographs and videos and everything back with their families, and some people have got a tablet, there's lots of smartphones. So it's extraordinary, right? That's 8 years. I mean, maybe they were actually making a phone call, it might not even be but that gives you some idea of the kind of changes. It's really, really interesting space. But I actually want to talk a little bit more about social and cloud. So let me just talk about social up front. So, how many of you here actively use social networking? Okay. Do you, let me just see now, so work out what actively means. Do you access it every day? Yeah, okay. That's about what, that's about, so about a third of the room accesses it every day. I won't ask who accesses it every hour, that might be a bit too much.
Who said that?
I'll tell you when my soccer teams are playing, I access it every hour to find out what's going on. But that's, I mean, and I presume 3 years ago, no, that wasn't the case, right? And there may have been a few people really at the kind of bleeding edge, but most people wouldn't have done that. So if we look across here, these are some stats, these are global stats, but actually Ireland's pretty similar to that actually. You get 80–90% of people engaged in social networking. But it's the two on the right hand side I think are most interesting. People now tweet to somebody, they don't know who it is, a machine, when they think, I want an answer back, especially if they're annoyed. And one of the things I make you reflect on a little bit, I think, following the presentation, I hope you reflect on following the presentation, is it's very easy to go into the social media stuff lightly, but actually it's a big contract you're making with all the people out there, and you need to think about that and be ready for the response and be ready to manage it. Because many businesses do it, and they're not really aware of what's about to happen. So if you do it, you either don't engage, or you do engage. If you do engage, you think about it very hard and be ready for the follow-up. I had 2 personal experiences that pleasantly surprised me on this, just to give you some examples. So I've just come back. This is my new role working in Ireland. I used to work in the European operations. I frequently came back late on a Friday night from different trips around Europe with Microsoft. And very occasionally, I normally fly Aer Lingus. Aer Lingus would fly in Terminal 1, even though my car and the bag and everything was in Terminal 2. It was midnight. I hadn't seen my family all week. I really wanted to get home. It wasn't what I wanted. And I got on Twitter and said, why on earth is this happening? Within 5 minutes, somebody from Aer Lingus picked up the tweet and responded and said, yeah, I'm sorry, it's operational reasons. We've got flights that need to go to the US tomorrow. We've had to move things around to accommodate it because of some maintenance in the airport. Now, didn't make me feel like, I mean, I still had to do my walk, but I thought, wow, they actually care and they're trying, and it was a really powerful experience. And the next one was, now I'm kind of remember if it was ESB or Electric Ireland. We had a power cut where I live. And again, all the network, so the internet went off and the house only had my phone, so I got on my phone and tweeted about when might this happen. Again, within 10 minutes, they were back on Twitter explaining to people what's happening. So, social media, it's this old adage about when things go wrong. You remember the things when things go right, they tell 2 people, and it goes wrong, they tell 10. The problem is, on Facebook, the average number of contacts people have is 130. Somebody goes on Facebook, So, it's really, I think, but they'll go on Facebook and say it's right as well. That sort of thing. They'll say it's really good. So this is a really powerful force for change and communicating out with people. I live in Dalkey, and we have a local cafe, a Corner Note Cafe. By chance, anybody here from the corner? They're incredibly active on Twitter, and I'm convinced they must have the most delicious deli menu in all the area because they're always there, and it's just because they're present and they're making things happen. So, just to move on then a little bit, so what does it mean in consumer? I'll do these reasonably quickly. So this is about how quickly these things have taken off in the consumer world. So, radio, TV, how many times did it take to get to 100 million people using it? Facebook took less than a year, and I think when Twitter's numbers are put up there, they'll be pretty similar. So things are happening quickly, but I think the other thing that you're going to see happening more and more is this people consuming one kind of media while participating in social networking. Now, some of you probably already do that. I always now go on Twitter when I'm watching a soccer match. Normally because I'm trying to see is everybody as annoyed as I am with how the team is playing. But, people do it, and Vincent Brown, if you watch that, the hashtag VinB and the stuff going on, it's really interesting how that happens, right? So I think this augmented, I don't think we've worked out exactly what all that means yet, but it's really interesting that people aren't passively watching, they want to engage and make stuff happen and interact with people. And then in business, the interesting thing is the same thing's starting to apply. Because people think this is a consumer play, right? I'm only doing this because I'm a consumer. No, this is happening in business as well. I mean, we have tools that allow you to do this. Other people have tools that allow you to do it as well, of course. But, and it helps people kind of bond and understand what's going on across their organization in exactly the same way as they do on the consumer social networks today. Now, if I just explain a little bit more about that. I mean, you have, previously, if you think how we interacted, you made a phone call, you broadcast maybe a conference call, you had an IM between two people. Now you can post thoughts on boards. People can say they like it, people can challenge it, people can say different things. So the whole interactivity experience in the business world can be very, very similar to what you see in the consumer world. And I know Microsoft's extreme in that we're a very big company, but the fact that we can track people down who get expertise and stuff through an informal network using social networking is remarkable, because we've just really done this in the last few years. And in a way that probably our formal structures wouldn't have let us do so easily before. And finally, the other thing I like is if you're on one site, if you do something, you like something, or you do post something there, it's cross-referenced with the other site that you may be on, so people can see what you're doing. Like, clearly in some cases maybe there's some privacy issue, but if that's done publicly or in a business world, it's very interesting to see what your peers or other friends you're working with are actually up to on their sites. So I'm going to stop there in social. That's that's thought-provoking. I think it's a journey. I think there's a lot of interesting things to go on. I think it's worth businesses of all size investing in this. But just think once you start, it's a commitment, and you need to. It's something you need to be able to follow through on. So let me talk about cloud computing. So I wasn't sure how many people would know cloud computing inside out and back to front. Who's very familiar with cloud computing? Okay, a few people. Okay. So I'm going to do some basic stuff, and then so if you're familiar with it, just bear with me as I go through this. So I think when I talk about how you compete and how you cope with all of these changes in the market, especially if you're a smaller company, cloud is your friend. It's really the thing that is really of most advantage to you. And what is cloud computing? Just to set the basics. Historically, you would have had all of your infrastructure, like big pedestal servers, all plumbed in a room, and you would have everything on your premises. Now that moves to an external provider, and you access it across the internet. And fundamentally, that does three things for you. If you want more capacity, computing power to do things, you can get it on demand, you can buy it, it spikes up. Whereas previously, you had to call your supplier, physically get kit to turn up, plumb it in, configure it, blah, blah, blah. Now, more or less like that, certainly within minutes, you can have this extra capacity turned on. So that's really quick. Secondly, you can make it go big. So if you wanted something for a particular project, make it go big, and then make it go smaller again. So for example, if you were in let's imagine you were doing concert promotion, and you had, if you were organizing a concert for 3 or 4 months of the year, you might want lots of people in your organization, and that drop down afterwards. You can do that with cloud in a way that wouldn't be very easy to do with traditional models. And the net effect, this is the box on the right, basically you're getting the best bang for your investment you possibly can. You're buying what you need, and you're scaling your business, but you're not restricted by what you've bought. You can kind of scale and make things happen. So how does that then fit in with an SME? So these are kind of potted examples of the kind of challenges we would see SME organizations have. And you can see there's a great, frankly, correlation between some of the things I've talked about earlier and these. So people want to work anywhere, they want to be mobile, they want to collaborate, they want to share information. They probably have a lot of information they want to share. For smaller organizations, they want to look as professional as a large company. So to a customer, there's no difference, or maybe even you look better than a larger organization. And in terms of the kind of deal that you get, they don't want a hugely expensive maintenance contract in you, and when your technology goes down, basically your business is in trouble, so you can't have that happen. So our belief is that cloud computing solution addresses many of those things, and we have a series of cloud options, as my colleague said in the bottom. There are others too, but we basically give you a set of tools that allow you to do that. So against this noisy, changing world, a cloud solution basically helps you do that, helps you get easy access across all your mobile devices, all your tablets for all the information in your organization. Helps you share the information really far more easily than you could otherwise. So you're not using, one of those or anything. It's all kind of commonly held in the cloud. And all the financial benefits that I think I went through, earlier on. We are a company that's really done a huge amount of cloud investment over the last decade, but probably most notably in the last 5 years. And some of we've got some information on some of these offerings out behind as well. So Office 3, I'll talk about the first two in a moment in a bit more detail. But we've also got consumer services, because the point is the cloud is affecting consumers' lives. I'm not going to talk so much about that today, but it affects consumers' lives with the different, with Skype as a video calling service, Hotmail as an email service, and SkyDrive as a storage service. But just to wrap up, I'm going to talk just about what we think is the right platform for many people to start with if you agree with those kind of trends and you're looking for IT solutions. Office 365. I presume many of you use Microsoft Office. Yes, that's a good nodding heads, okay. Good. The point is, it's interesting, Microsoft Office is commonly seen as Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Outlook, because people think of the programs you use. In fact, one of the things we've done a huge amount of work on in the last decade is to build a series of other functions that wrap around that. So email, collaboration, so you can share documents, and the ability to do voice video calls. So for example, within my email, I can just click on something and do a video call directly from my email to Yvonne or something in my team and make that happen. So it's really easy and all embedded in there. So just the apps themselves are not the only thing. And the nice thing about 365 is it gives you all of those functions, which I'll just go round the wheel, but it gives you all of those functions in the cloud. You've no installation, you're done, it's all set up for you. It's really easy to manage, easy to use. And the last slide about the products is this one. Often when people set up with Office 365, the other thing you want, especially as a kind of nimbler SME organization, is CRM. So how do you manage your customer relationships? How do you manage your sales and marketing campaigns? How do you manage your service if things go wrong with the customers? And we have a full suite, Microsoft Dynamics and CRM, that basically links with all of that, so you get it out of the box in one go. And if you want to know more about those, we're very happy to talk to you about that afterwards in the networking section. So let me just wrap up with this final slide. I think this is evident from what we've talked about. We're very committed to working with the SME sector, with the chambers. I think it's a great initiative for us. We have a number of resources you can take advantage of. If you look at LinkedIn, a social network, we have a group that you can sign up for. We have a monthly newsletter. We have a special website just specifically for those for this area, which you can look for tools and tricks and so on. So with that, thank you for that, and I will hand over.
Brilliant, Richard. Very, very